العالمين. الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا هدانا الله جعلنا السبب اللهم اهدنا الحق إلى طريق المستقيم. اللهم وفقنا على ما تحب وترضى. آمين. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تبارك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم تقبل صلاتنا وقيامنا وسجودنا وتقبل صالحات أعمالنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. اللهم تقبل هذه الصلاة منك كما تقبل ملك الصالحين واغفر لنا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم اجعلنا من التوابين واجعلنا من المتطهرين يا رب العالمين. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا اغفر لنا ولوالدينا وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد في الآخرين وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. بسم الله. السلام عليكم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. وبعد. الله رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. آمين يا رب العالمين. Hvala zahvala gospoda si svjetova, salavat i salam poslanika Muhammeda sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, njegov porod, uzvrti česte ashabe i na sve one koji ga slijede su njega dana. Molim gospoda svjetova da budemo na putu istine. Amin. Amin. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the blessings, peace be upon Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, his household, his companions, and all those who follow him until the judgment. Amin. Rabbil Amin. So tonight, inshallah, as 1. mart, nek je srećan, ako Bog da, dan državnosti Bosne i Hercegovine, ako Bog da Allah sačuva naš vatan, našu domovinu. Amin. Ujedno, ako Bog da 3. marta, ako Bog da 2 dana, dakle nedjelja, nastupa tačno 100 godina od ukidanja posljednjeg hilafeta. Ja vidim ovu temu vrlo bitnu za nas, za umet, danas da naučimo gdje smo u ovih 100 godina. Šta smo naučili u proteklih 100 godina i kad je vrijeme da razmišljamo o jedinstvu. Ovo je dakle, normalno ja neću ići puno u detalje zato što je ova tema zahtjeva, dakle ne možemo na ovaj način vraćati se gore dole, nego ću dakle samo onako malo površno o ovoj dakle stvari progovoriti zato što mislim da je vrlo, vrlo bitna. Dakle, Europa, ona se ujedinila, dakle oni imaju ekonomiju, imaju svoju valutu, imaju svoje granice, Evropska unija. Oni su se uspjeli ujediniti za 77 godina. Iako je dakle to podneblje, to dakle te državice koje nastaje, dakle najviše ratova bilo, najviše se između se bili i tako dalje, ali eto, u 77 godina, dakle, trebalo im je da se ujedini. Muslimani, evo, 100 godina je nastupilo kako smo izgubili hilafet, 1924. godine, još nismo ni blizu toga, da imamo svoju valutu, da imamo svoju ekonomiju, da imamo svoju, ne znam nija vojsku, da imamo svoju, ne znam nija neki, dakle, sistem. Sve je, dakle, pocijepano, sve je, dakle, razdvojeno i čemu to sve vodi, vidjet ćemo. Dakle, nakon Lozanskog sporazuma 1923. godine, dakle, samo godina dana prije nego što će se ukinuti hilafet, kad su Osmanlije poražene u Prvom svjetskom ratu. Normalno mi znamo da su dakle izdati od muslimana, da su dakle postojale izdajice poput Huseina Šerifa, njegovih sinova. Dakle, mnogo je se govorilo, raspravljalo među muslimanima i nemuslimanima, dakle, da je dakle ovo početak kraja tog dakle hilafeta. Poslanik alejhi selatu vesselam govori u hadisu kog bilježi imam Ahmed u svome musnedu, kaže čvorovi islama će se, kaže, raskidati jedan po jedan. svaki put kad čvor, dakle, pukne ili se raspadne, sljedeći će se, kaže, uhvatiti. Prvi će, kaže, biti od tih čvoreva poništenje šerijata, odnosno suda, suđenje po šerijatu. A posljednji će, kaže, biti namaz. Dakle, vidimo da poslanik alejhi selatu vesselam, dakle, nas je malo nagovijestio. Mi smo govorili o preznacima sudnjega dana, pa smo se zaustavili, pa ćemo nastaviti poslije Ramazana, ali smo govorili zadnja etapa hilafeta je Palestina, njen će glavni grad biti Kuds. I ovo je, kako kažu historičari danas, početak, kraj židovskih, dakle, nasilja na tim prostorima. Molimo gospodara da nam oslobodi Kuds. Amin. So tonight, inshallah, I see this subject very important because after tomorrow, on Sunday, March 3rd, it will be exactly 100 years from the abolishment of Khilafah, Islamic rulings. So this is very important for us to know. I will not talk too much about the historical facts, since you know, and we don't have time of going this way because it has to be separate in order to go faster. So, but I would like just a couple things to mention over here. What we have learned from these 100 years without the leader. Taking as example the Europe. Europe has united. They have the money is called Euro, Europe Union. They have the borders. Everything is open amongst them. They united on this way or that way. But Muslims, we don't have nothing even close to have our money, our power, our army, our economy system, and so many other systems that we need to have in order for us to be united. So, do we think about importance of unity for us? It should be. It should be, but like we have in these days, it's very, very, very far away. But inshallah, soon or later, it will come. So the Europe has more than any other countries that they fight amongst themselves. They shed blood everywhere, but they succeed in 77 years. They are united. It took them 77 years in order for them to unite it, and they are now. We are without Khilafah since 1924, 100 years, but still we are disunited. Whatever you try to unite the people, there is always somebody else. It could be outsiders, it could be this and that, but something is going on. And we see how the Muslim lands is occupied. One of the reasons why it's occupied and why it's controlled by so many others there is no longer crusaders and all this what do you call them, the fighting, but modern war to occupy lands, and all this what we have is occupation this way or the other way. So that is one of the reasons to keeping Muslims far away from the of course the Khilafah, the unity. So that will long as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or will last as Allah subhanahu wishes for. As the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam announced or told us or prophesied, that we mentioned it when we talk about signs of the Day of Judgment. Will inshallah continue after Ramadan. So that he says, that the last Khilafah will be in the Palestine, and its Asima, or the capital, it will be Quds Sharif. So inshallah, as our the history scholars or historians says, this is the beginning of the end of the Zionism in Palestine, and this brutal shedding the blood and killing the kids and women and the elderly and so on. Whatever they do, they are unable to defeat those who are fighting in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are showing the resistance. But we see, how they use the names, rebellions and the terrorists, and because they are trying to scare even the Muslims from those who are standing against the aggressors and aggressions and occupators. And in many lands, those groups appear because they want to expel those who come to occupy their lands. And we'll mention later on about that. So what the Prophet ﷺ was mentioning us, actually before that, the following from the Lunasen Treaty in 1994, just the year before then the Khilafah will be abolished, when the Ottomans were defeated in the War One, and many of the Muslims and non-Muslims even they said this is like leading to the collapse of the Khilafah, so and then it was really because many of the Muslims countries actually betrayed Ottomans in the Mecca, in the Medina, beginning with the Hussein Sharif and his two sons, and then the rest of the Arabic revolt that happened in those 1916s and 14s. And we know what happened, what kind of massacres they've done, and then of course they lost to Palestine, and then since then we are facing this issue. So the Prophet ﷺ have said the knots of Islam will be undone one by one. Each time a knot is undone, the next one will be grasped. The first to be undone will be the ruling Sharia, because nobody, even Muslims, they don't like Sharia. And the last one will be the prayer. So this is kind of a sayings of the Prophet ﷺ, letting us know what will happen in the future. Of course, following the Khilafah from the four of them, the guided caliphs, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. And then after that, we have Emawis and then Fatimis, Alawis, so many of them, those dynasties. We'll talk next time about that, but right now we have to focus on only this. Dakle, prošlo je 100 godina i dakle navršava se dakle 100 godina od tog uništenja osmanskog hilafeta i normalno to je dakle najmračnije poglavlje u islamskoj historiji nakon dakle smrti Rasula sallallahu alejhi ve selleme. Normalno to posljedice i danas dan mi dakle viđamo dakle katastrofalne posljedice svega toga, upravo zato što mi muslimani dakle trenutno dakle nemamo kolektivnu moralnu snagu koja je dakle oličena u obliku dakle inkluzivnog islamskog dakle poretka. Normalno Bliski istok, mislim Afrika isto kasnije dakle su podijeljeni između dakle Velike Britanije i Francuske, dok su dakle poznata dva generala, onaj Mark Skys i onaj Francois Picot, poznati njihov dakle ugovor, jer oni su planirali budućnost dakle bivši osmanskih teritorija, dakle oni su to odmah podijelili perom i linijarem. Dakle, tako da je došlo do tog podjele tog svijeta muslimanskog, jer su našli špijune, izdajnike među muslimanima, pa su uspjeli u tom dakle u tom projektu. I normalno sve se to izdešavalo kada je došlo i do Palestine, kada su dali zemlju koju ne posjeduju onima koji dakle u njoj ne stanuju. I normalno i do danas dan je to dakle stoji, dokle će trajati do onoga dana dokle Allah dželešanu da bude dozvolio pojavu pravednog hilafeta. Dobro, sve ovo je dakle koncept hilafeta dakle stalno omaložavan od strane zapadnjaka, od strane dakle stranih okupacija muslimanskih, upravo iz tog razloga da se ne bi probudila ideja o hilafi. Normalno kada se probudila dakle ta ideja o hilafetu, mi dobro znamo da je bilo dakle ISIL ili ISIS ili ne znam nija islamska država Levanta i Sirije, dakle nakon pada Iraka, Sirije, Libije, dakle iako nije prihvaćen od umeta, dakle ni od učenjaka, nije to taj hilafet koji se očekuje, jer je bio u stvari nepravedan, nije to dakle hilafet koji se očekuje, ali je ipak ideja je ostala kod ljudi, ideja je ostala dakle ta želja za tim dakle hilafetom, iako je dakle proglašena na pogrešan način i u pogrešno vrijeme i kako je se to sve dakle odvijalo, ali normalno Zapad je to iskoristio u svoju korist, da se to treba boriti protiv njiha i normalno su trupe dakle su pojavljene dok se to nije borilo, dok se nije dakle sve to uništilo onako već kako znate dakle tu priču. Poslanik alejhi selam kaže, poslanici su upravljali, kaže, političkim poslovima Benu Israila kad god je poslanik umro, drugi poslanik ga je, kaže, naslijedio i tako je vodio svoj narod. Ali, kaže, poslije mene neće biti poslanika, umjesto toga, kaže, bit će halife. Biće halife i njih ćemo, kaže, i njih će biti mnogo. Vidite kako poslanik alejhi selatu vesselam, dakle, nama najavio. Znamo da je pravedni hilafet traje negdje 30 godina, nakon toga pojeste, dakle, razne vrste vlasti. Zatim su ashabi, dakle, kazali, šta nam onda naređuješ? Allahu poslanik kaže, ispunjavajte odanost prema njima, dakle, budite im odani, slušajte ih na jedan za drugim, dajte im svoje obaveze, a Allah će ih, kaže, uistinu pitati za ono što im je povjerio. Dakle, poslanik alejhi selatu vesselam nije naredio da se bori protiv nepravedne vlasti, nego je pokazio da se, kaže, iskaže poštovanje. Jer on će biti zato pitan ako su bili zulumčari, ako su činili zulum, ako su ubijali svoj narod, ko što se dešavalo, dakle, pošto je bio Hadžadž ibn Jusuf i ne znam, nije bilo ti, dakle, vođa koji su činili zulum, pa uglavnom nikomu se nije suprotstavilo muslimana da je digao vlast, osim, dakle, kada se dešavalo na nekim, dakle, mjestima gdje se, dakle, pojavljivo taj, dakle, vojni preokret, i to da nam je poznato kroz historiju, kao u Tursku, Egiptu, Tuncu, ne znam, nija, Siriji i tako dalje, da su generali vode tu državu. Dakle, to je otprilike šta je se izdešavalo. So, 100 years of destroying of Khilafah, or 100 years later on. So as we know that these days is 100 years of since the destruction or the abolishment of the Ottoman Khilafah. It was what we can say like darkness or darkest chapter in history of Islam after the death of Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And we see that darkness, there is so many effect on us even after 100 years. We are still suffering from all these calamities, what's happening, and how Muslim world are controlled, and how many traitors are in between Muslims who are working for others instead to work for their people, and so on and so forth, as you know. So you see the Middle East and the North Africa were actually divided between Britain and France. That is well-known agreement, Sykes-Picot, because they planned the future of the former Ottoman, the lands or territories with the pen and ruler. They basically draw lines, what belongs to you, what belongs to me. And of course, that agreement was Palestine as well. They give it, they give something they don't have to the people. They are not living there unjustly. And then that conflict is still today with us. And how long it will be, Allah knows. But this is the beginning of the end, or end of the beginning of the Zionism, and the Khilafah, inshallah, is close to come. So the idea of Khilafah did not die in the Muslims, because it is emphasized through the many of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And we see recently the collapse, like the one was the Arabic revolt recently. We see the ISIL and ISIS and Daesh, and there is so many, what do you call it, all them Al-Qaeda, and many of those interesting things. But I don't have time to go into all those details. Al-Qaeda actually wasn't military or those group that are using guns and so on. It was actually data, and then how they create from data to become something completely different. And that is well known how they made it, because it was only data. There's so many documents in it, but the people misuse it, and it become completely like military army or something like that. And we see so many those names, how they become when the Iraq and Libya and Syria was going chaos. So they pronounce, or they announce, is ISIL, or Islamic State of Islam, or Islamic State of the Syrian Levant, and whatever and whatnot. And we see that majority of the Muslims, even our scholars, did not recognize it as Khilafah, because it was wrong. It was unjust. That is not what should be is the Khilafah, and it's well known through the rules and regulations how it should. So that's why we find so many rejection. But anyhow, the most important thing that the idea of Khilafah within Muslims, even if it's wrong in these days, did not die, and that is wish from the West that that idea is completely, uprooted from their hearts and their minds. But it's not. It's still there, and of course they misuse that, and that they use it as actually as opportunity to attack even more the Middle East because of that great idea, because they call them the terrorists, and that is attack war on the terrorism and terrorists, and so. And we see what all this news, what is happening, and how they, you know, call those rebellions and the terrorists, as long as there is somebody, because they are not actually, but those are fighters. Even in the Sudan, in the many of these areas, they go Shabab, whatever it's called, that group. Even Taliban in the Afghanistan. There is a reason why those groups appeared, or why they are raised, because they are trying to push the occupiers out of their lands. Those are pushing they are resistant, showing the resistance to those who came to occupy their land. And of course, through the media, and they are able, to even to confuse the Muslims. They say that it's extreme group who are fighting, you know, uh, they are fighting against those who came to their land, which is normally, if whoever comes to your land, you have right to fight. That is absolutely normal. But we see that to do it today is everything is mixed up, and they're trying to show us it is wrong. However, uh, so the Khilafah is actually well known through the Islamic history, and so many of the sayings of the Prophet ﷺ, and there is the Sharia law that will establish and be just to everyone, Muslims and non-Muslims, all those who are living under their rule. So, but in these days we don't have it, and there is a certain time and moment when it will start, and the last phase of it is that we live in now. It is right now, because what's happening right now in the Holy Land or Palestine, as our scholars, these are not my words, but there is scholars who are, uh, n- there's a couple of them. They are, really in history and science, well known and well educated in that. So they are saying it is end of the beginning, of the Khilafah, and all what this has done. That they did not destroy the resistance who are trying to push out the Zionists from the Palestine. They cannot do anything to them because they are so strong. Alhamdulillah, that is good news, and we see so many casualties on the Zionist side as well. Druga stvar, dakle, pad sovjetskoga, kako se kaže, saveza, Sovjetskog saveza, septembra 11. Arapsko proljeće i ISIS. Dakle, nakon pada Sovjetskog saveza 1800 ili 1900, stvar 89. 1989. Ja. Dakle, ja. Francis Fukara je, kaže, arogantno izjavio, kaže da je čovječanstvo doseglo kraj historije. Normalno implicirajući, dakle, aludirajući da je to, dakle, liberalna demokratija ili demokracija jedini način, dakle, prirodni oblik vlasti koji kaže, proživio ispitne valove globalnih promjena. Normalno on se tu grdno prevario, dakle, sami napad nakon 11. septembra i kasnije, dakle, rat protiv terorizma, u stvari bio rat protiv muslimana, koji je, dakle, uslijedio svjedočenje o tome. Nakon invazije na Afganistan, onda Irak, pa dakle uspona, dakle, oružanih grupa u Jemenu, u Somaliji, u Pakistanu, dakle, postao, dakle, neizbježno jasan da svi pružaju otpor onima koji su došli, dakle, okupatorima. Da je želja, dakle, za povratkom hilafeta, dakle, kroz te male skupince, on su uvijek najavljivali želeći, dakle, pritome da dozivaju hilafet i da se, dakle, hilafet osniva. Normalno, arapsko proljeće ili ono što je, dakle, od njega ostalo ovih dana, Dakle, to je jedan primjer, dakle, kako su ljudi islamski, dakle, osjećaj opće muslimanske, dakle, mase, misli, želje o tome hilafetu. Recimo Tunis, Egipat, Libija ili Jemen, dakle, očigledno je, dakle, u Siriji, dakle, bilo to najbolji primjer. Zato, dakle, revolucije koje su se širile poput požara u 2011. dakle, u početku se, dakle, su počele kao osnovni pokreti, kako bi se, dakle, postiglo samo opredeljenje u regionu, koji su, dakle, decenijama vladali diktatori, koji je, dakle, podržavao Zapad, čiji su bili, dakle, prodane duše, kao i danas mnogi od njih. Dakle, pokušavalo se te neke erije gdje su osvajale te vojske da kontrolišu, da bude pod nekom islamskom vlast. Nažalost, dakle, uz uplitanje normalno zapadnih sila, njihovi, dakle, regionalni zastupnici su, dakle, nije to išlo kako, mi dobro to znamo da je to već uništeno, da je to i te pomoći kako su dolazile, dakle, sve je to ispetljano, tako da vidimo da u tome nema nekoga hilafeta kojim se sanja, ali, dakle, ima ta ideja. Dakle, pojava grupe poznate kao ISIS ili ISIL, koja je tvrdila da je obnovila hilafet 29. januara 2014. godine. Oni su tada proglasili, dakle, islamska država, Iraka i Levanta, bilo je, dakle, ostvarenje sna za zapad. Jer bivši britanski oružani snaga, general Richard Danat, kaže, opravdao je, dakle, okupacija Afganistana. Evo zbog čega, dakle, okupacija Afganistana, umješanost, ne znam, Britanije u rat protiv terorizma, navodeći da je to trebalo spriječiti. Dakle, treba se to spriječiti, jer znaju oni šta je hilafet. Znaju onda to neće biti lahko, dakle, se soti poslije nositi, jer historijski, kaže, hilafet koji prolazi kroz Južnu Aziju, Bliski istok, Sjevernu Afriku i gore kroz Južnu i jugoistočnu Evropu. Dakle, to je bio, dakle, njihov cilj. Zato je, dakle, Zapad pokušao da utuši, da to maksimalno, dakle, priguši, jer, dakle, mediji, normalan naziv ili nazivanje ISIS islamskom državom, znajući da je to, dakle, većina muslimana, uključujući, dakle, grupe istomišljenika koji podržavaju to, dakle, svi podržavaju taj hilafet, ali ne baš taj koji je se pojavio, jer u stvari nije bio ni po, dakle, po kriterijama šerijata, što je normalno bilo i odbijeno. Tako, dakle, pa ćemo govoriti sutra, ako Bog da, povodom i ovoga, u stvari ćemo govoriti o Ramazanu i pobjedama koje, dakle, najbitnije pobjede, najbitnije, dakle, bitke koje se vodile u mjesecu Ramazanu i koje su muslimana donijele pobjede. A evo, ako Bog da, inša Allahu ta'ala, Ramazan uskoro nastupa, a naša Palestina će biti isto u Ramazanu, pa molimo Allaha dželešanu da njima uz Ramazan da im dadne, ako Bog da, veliku pobjedu, i molimo Allaha dželešanu da nas učvrsti u vjeri. Amin. So lastly, I would like to share with you is the Soviet downfall, 9/11, and Arab Spring, and ISIS or ISIL. So as we know, after the fall or downfall of the Soviet Union in 1988, Mr. Francis Fukuyama had arrogantly stated that humanity had reached the end of history because it defeated the communism, implying that, the liberal democracy or democracy was the only natural form of government to have survived the testing waves of global change. Of course, he did mistake when we come to the Khilafah, because he thought that he killed the idea of Khilafah completely in the Muslims' minds, and that did not happen. Of course, the 9/11 attack, and then, US announced the war on terror in global, that followed is a testimony to this. After the invasion of Afghanistan, and then Iraq, and the rise of the armed groups in Yemen, and then Somalia, and then Pakistan, it became, unavoidably clear that the desire for the return of the Khilafah was very much existent. Because all these groups, why they're fighting, or they are showing the resistance to occupators. They don't want French in their lands. They're trying to kick them out. So they call them terrorists. It should be fight. So that's how they change all these names. So then Arab Spring, or what remains of it in these days, is another example of the Islamic, you know, uh, general Muslim masses thinking about the Khilafah, even though in the Tunisia and Egypt and the Libya and the Yemen, and more evidently in the Syria that happens, there are prime examples that Muslims still have this idea of the Khilafah in their mind. And of course, the question is only when it will appear and when will apply all the Islamic rules. Because what we saw from the ISIL or ISIS, it wasn't Islam, and nobody actually from the Muslims did not accept it unless those are living there, they are forced by. But none of the scholars accepted as well. But only the West used it as an opportunity to attack even more these Muslim countries. So the revolution that spread like wildfire in 2011 initially began as a grassroots movement, in order to attain the self-determination in a region which had been ruled by Western, baked dictators for the decades. Even in these days, there is so many of them. They work against their people. So the emergence of the group known as ISIS, which claimed to have restored the Khilafah on the June 29th, 2014. That is their officially, they announce the return of the Khilafah, and then we know that nobody supported them, but they are trying to live according to their rules, not according to the Sharia, because it wasn't Sharia, because we see so many bad things that happen from their side. But at least the areas that they used to control, they apply their own rule called Sharia whatsoever, but it wasn't recognized from the scholars from the rest of the Muslim world. But that was at least the dream of the West. It become true. So that was even more. That is why the former chief of the British Armed Forces, Sir General Richard Dennett, justified the occupation of Afghanistan and then Britain's involvement in the war on terror by stating that it was to prevent the the historical Islamic Khilafat running or running through Asia and the Middle East, North Africa, and upon up to through the South and the Southeast Europe. So that is what he says. So there's opportunity. Let us attack them, so that try to put them down as much as we can. So the calamity of the ISIS has been used by the strike by the Western politicians to beat the Muslims with. So that was great. A weapon, basically, they help the West, against their own Muslims, so they are defeated, and then, completely smash them out. And today we don't have even that existence of the ISIL, and how they form and who is behind. So all this is things, going into the dust, and we ask Allah Subhanahu to help us. So tomorrow, inshallah, we'll talk about the Ramadan and the victories that happen, the major battles in the Islam that happen in the month of Ramadan, and how Allah Subhanahu wa Taala gave the main and the major victories in the month of Ramadan, since the Palestine, inshallah, will be in Ramadan, and the resistance over there will be in Ramadan. So we ask Allah Subhanahu wa, pray to Him to help them and to give them the victory over the Zionism, and to defeat them finally, and hopefully, inshallah, soon to see Khilafah as well. And their capital will be the Quds. We ask Allah Subhanahu to help us, guide us to the straight path, increase our iman. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.